All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Side Quest Podcast, the unofficial podcast of Fitocracy. If you're not following me on Twitter, check me out at SideQuestFM. You can also follow me on Instagram as well at SideQuestFM. You can head over to Facebook and like the Side Quest Podcast there by just searching Side Quest Podcast, or check out my fitness stuff at Side Quest Fitness. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, head over to iTunes, search Side Quest Podcast, hit subscribe. Every Monday morning when a new episode comes out at 6 a.m., it'll download straight to your phone, and you don't have to search for the brand new episodes when they come out. While you're there, if you would be so kind as to leave a review. When you leave a review and hit subscribe, it helps us move up the charts so more people can hear from the amazing guests that I've had on the show. Or you can head over to sidequestfitness.com/podcast and listen to the show there. There you'll also get show notes and links to articles, books that guests talk about, or anything else that happens in our interview. I have a great guest for you today. She has essentially written the book on reverse dieting, something that I just got done experimenting with myself. She has a BA in human biology, which means she's way smarter than me, so anything I want to ask her, I'm going to feel really dumb asking probably simple questions. But she has written for bodybuilding.com. She has interned at Cressy Performance, and she is the co-host and quote-unquote from her site, the gatekeeper to BioLane.
Correct.
But the one and the only Sohee Lee. Sohee, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So for people who may not know who you are, tell the listeners a little about who Sohee is and kind of how you got into the world of fitness.
Right. So in a nutshell, I guess I always have a hard time explaining in one sentence what I do because I feel like I wear so many hats. But I guess in a nutshell, I could say I'm a fitness blogger. I'm also a coach. I work primarily with women who want to lose fat and learn to, repair their relationships with food. And I teach them how to get lean the healthy and sustainable way and be happy and have fun along the way. I graduated 3 years ago from Stanford with a BA in human biology, as you said. And my main interest is within the realm of fitness is the behavioral psychology aspect is the most fascinating to me. So I've been over the past 3.5 years, I've been moving in that direction. And, I've got a blog, soheefit.com. I've got a coaching business. I write for a number of different publications. And, the fun thing about being an entrepreneur is that you can pretty much work on any project that you kind of want to do and find a way to make money off of that. So, the reverse dieting ebook, as you mentioned, that came out last fall was one of those projects, and it's been doing really well so far. And right now I'm working on a new product and working on different certifications and speaking across the country and having a lot of fun.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So you mentioned, the mental side of it. It's a big thing that I'm starting to kind of get in myself and looking at, because I think it's so easy to be like, okay, well, really all you have to do is track what you eat this amount, and just lift weights, or do some cardio, or really do something more than what you're doing now. And we're like, oh, that's so easy. But then our brain goes, I don't really like what you're doing.
Right.
So how did you? Because you mentioned that you had an eating disorder on your site.
Yes, I did.
How did you repair the relationship with food that you now have?
Right. Well, first of all, I will say that it definitely didn't happen overnight, and it was a long and relatively arduous process for me. But honestly, I think the turning point was when I discovered weightlifting. And I always say that lifting weights, learning how to lift weights, saved my life in more ways than one. And when I realized that as a woman, you can lift weights and you can still look feminine and just get strong, I fell in love with it. And that kind of set the wheels in motion to slowly change my attitude about my body. And instead of thinking I need to get skinnier and weigh less on the scale, I started thinking, oh, now I want to be stronger. So even that subtle, that simple change in mindset was enough to really start to make me question my relationship with food. I said, okay, this isn't working. Why is it that I love food so much, but I also fear at the same time? And, you know, I'm so miserable. I feel guilty whenever I eat this. And I have all these rules about can't eat that, can't do this. And I was unhappy because I wasn't able to eat food and live my life and not think about food all the time. And I was so envious. I remember thinking I think it was 8 years ago. I was so envious of people who could, for example, eat a sandwich and then not think about that sandwich again for another 5 hours. Whereas, you know, I would obsess over it. So that I said, you know, this isn't normal. I know I wasn't that way my whole life. And I said, I know I can get back to how I used to be. And I want to get back to repairing my relationship with food. So I started learning about nutrition. You know, I kind of went down multiple different paths. I went down the meal plan path for a while, and then I learned about macros. I started learning about macros, and then learned about flexible dieting. And I slowly started to, you know, move away from the good food, bad food mindset. And now, you know, it's been 8 years since then, and I feel like I'm in a really, really good place now. But it was a lot of patience, a lot of self-compassion, and most of all, and this is what I tell my clients too, is really learning to get comfortable. And this is the metaphor I use. Get good with gray is what I said. Getting good with gray. You know, black and white. There's black and white, the two extremes, and then there's the whole gray area. And I tell them, learn to get comfortable being in the gray area where you feel vulnerable, well, everyone likes extremes. You know, everyone likes don't do this, don't do that. But if you say, oh, but you can have some of this and you can do a little bit of that, people don't like that. It makes them really antsy. And I said, you know, but this is where the sustainability sits. You know, this is where you're going to achieve long-term results. And I realized, you know, if I want to be in this for the long haul, and if I want to be happy with my life, and I need to figure out how to make moderation work for me. So that's been my main. I started my business 3.5 years ago. That's really what I've been working towards since then.
Okay. So you mentioned the gray area, and
yeah.
Is there anything out there sort of like now, like in the mental side, or, you know, the cognitive, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but on that side of like health and fitness, like, because we do extremes. Like I was at a bookshop in Maine on vacation, and I was like, you know what, I just want to look. I want to go look over at the health and fitness nutrition aisle.
Right.
There was one book, like everything that sort of, you know, everyone preaches about, if it fits your macros or flexible dieting. There was only one copy of Georgie Fear's new book, and it was sitting like in a corner.
Yeah.
And everything else, there were hundreds of copies of this diet and that diet and paleo this and paleo that, or, you know, this crashing grain brain.
Right. Yeah.
Is there, like, how do we combat that? How do we as coaches, you know, get people to be comfortable with the gray?
You know, I think that's a really good question, and I think I will say right off the bat that it is an uphill battle for coaches like us, because people like flashy titles. They like knowing, you know, for whatever reason, we have it in our heads that if we want to look good, we have to suffer. And there are, I guess, you know, heroics involved with being hungry and cutting out all your cravings. And who wants to tell, like, you know, people feel proud. They have a odd sense of pride when they tell people, yeah, I'm not allowed to eat donuts, and I'm not going to eat sugar for the next 10 months. They wear it like a badge of honor, and they get to say, oh, but guess what? I went to the gym for 10 hours last week. What did you do? It's kind of like, I think it's a big part of the culture nowadays, where you brag about how many hours you work, and you brag about how little sleep you get. And I think that's the whole fitness aspect of it is very much on par with that mindset. And for people like us, honestly, I think for me, it's a matter of really trying to get the science out there in a way that is, you know, because I think science in general can be really intimidating for the general population. You know, who wants to read a research study and try to make sense of all the jargon? It's hard. It seems really scary. And you think, you glance at it and you're thinking, oh, well, I'm not evidence-based. Science is not for me. I just go by what works. But I think that, you know, I very much value science, and I think that research is very important. And I try to present a mix of personal anecdotes from my experience, from experience with clients, plus here's what the research says to support this story. And, you know, for me, I really am trying to grow my reach and grow my audience. And there's no better way to do that than to, one, continue cranking out quality content, and two, proving over the long term, over the long haul, that I really do walk the walk. And I say, hey, here are the things that I believe, and watch me actually do these things month after month after month after month. And I'm still, I still stay lean year round. I still look good. And if I can do it, so can you. And it's really not a matter of, there's so many misconceptions surrounding motivation and willpower and self-control. And the more I talk about it, the more that people are going to know. And, I think, especially as a female, I think it's hard, especially when it's so much easier to get attention if you just post like a certain selfie photo with, scantily clad clothing. And that's a great way to get really fast attention. But that's not going to really change the industry. That's not going to, make a lasting positive impact. So I think things like Georgie Fear, I think her book Lean Habits is excellent. I wish that there were more books out there like that. But I think it's going to take some time. It really is, because everyone loves watching The Biggest Loser because it's extreme. People get pushed to the extremes, and no one thinks moderation is sexy. But I like to say, I've been telling people a little bit, I'm half joking, but I am actually pretty serious when I say I'm here to make moderation sexy, and I'm here to make moderation seem appealing. And that's the hardest part, is to convince people, hey, you don't want to have, you don't want to crash diet. You don't want to go to extremes. You want slow and sustainable results. So I think the movement is there, and it's growing slowly but surely. But we'll see. I think, obviously I can't do it alone. We need more people who are learning about mindset. You don't have to have a PhD. Like, I don't have a PhD in behavioral psychology by any means, but I know enough about habits, and I know enough about behavior change to guide people in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think there's too much. And, it's interesting. I was in Boston, and I was getting some workouts in with a few people, and one of the guys there was like, "Are you like what is your specialty? Like, are you nutrition? Are you like strength? Are you like muscle? Like what are you?" And then I get like 2 emails from people asking me about like nutrition stuff, and I guess like that's the one thing that if people feel like they can really grasp, like if they can control that aspect, they can make everything else okay. But it's so hard, because you look on the news every day, and Yahoo or your local news station is like, this burns fat, and this does that, and you're like, but I don't know what to do. And it's so confusing that it's hard to really be that lighthouse that shines a light out.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, let's talk a little about reverse dieting, because you wrote the ebook on that.
Yes.
I just got through my little experiment with it.
How'd it go for you?
Well, I actually emailed Lane because I had a weird question. I was like, "Dear Lane, so I used the Taylor's tape to measure, only because 9 times out of 10 I feel really weird being like, hey wife, come squeeze fat on my body with these calipers."
Right.
And I can sort of do it on my own, so if I was on the road, it's a little easier to get a measurement. And I ended up gaining an inch on my bicep, and I was like, Lane, that doesn't sound like something that should happen. WTF. But I haven't gained any. My weight has stayed like within the range of like water weight. Like it hasn't shot up. It hasn't. I've actually some weeks been down, some weeks been right where I started. Right. But yeah, it's gone well. I'm almost eating 400 grams of carbs a day, and nice. It's awesome. It means lots of Ben and Jerry's frozen yogurt for me.
Yeah, I bet. So over time, how many extra calories did you end up adding to your daily nutrition?
Well, I started adding about 100 every 2 weeks, and I tried to do this in 2-week
That's
increments.
really good. Yeah.
Because I knew if I timed it just right, I could time it to where I would be finishing, quote unquote, at my anniversary, and I was like, good, then I can eat that year-old wedding cake and and be good.
Right.
So I added about 100 grams a week. Mine was a little different only because while my wife was finishing up grad school, I did a lot of the meal planning, and she likes like cheese and stuff. So my carbs were probably lower than they should be. My fats were a little higher.
Okay.
And protein was within the 0.82 range. But yeah, it it went well. And as soon as I topped over about 200, 225 grams of carbs, I noticed my training felt a million times better.
Yeah, right.
And then now once I've gotten up even higher, it's pretty good. But so what is reverse dieting?
Reverse dieting is kind of essentially what the name implies. It's dieting in reverse. So instead of slowly chipping away calories to lose fat, you kind of want to undo everything that you've done during the fat loss phase without piling on body fat again, of course. Right. So it's a way of it's a controlled way of adding calories back into your diet, such that you can bring your metabolism back up to speed, because there is a degree of metabolic slowdown when you diet, especially for a considerable length of time, while keeping the body fat gain in check. Because a lot of times what happens is the normal dieter, the typical dieter, they diet, they crash diet, they end their diet, and then their calories spike back up. And when they do that, and there are a number of studies that show this as well, not only does their body weight return back to what it was before, but they actually end up putting on a disproportionate amount of body fat in relation to lean body mass or muscle. So they actually they end up ultimately with higher body fat than when they started before, and which is really unfortunate. But and you think people would learn that for the first time, but I think it's human nature to think, okay, well, maybe I'm not happy with where I am now, so I have to diet again. But the more diet cycles you go through, the more resistant your body becomes to dieting, because your body does not want to be in a caloric deficit. It views it as a threat. So after you do it once or twice, it learns how to better adapt, such that it's more resistant. So when you try to drop calories, your body doesn't budge. And I know that a lot of people have been through this phenomenon. So we like reverse dieting because it's a way to kind of mitigate the damage. And especially if you've been dieting for a long time, we say, okay, now we want you to reverse dieting for some time. At least time-wise, I recommend at least a 1-to-1 ratio. So, 6 months dieting, 6 months reverse dieting, which is not to say that you need to be continually adding calories for 6 months nonstop, but rather just stay out of a deficit for long enough. Just if you can spend more time in the year not in a caloric deficit, I think your body will respond a lot better over the long term. It will be a lot healthier too.
Yeah, and I have to say the biggest thing that I learned coming back up was once I hit like 2,300 calories, I'd be like, I don't know how to fill in 200, 250 MyFitnessPal. I don't really want, it was weird because I felt like I got to that point where like my body was like, okay, this is enough. But as I added in, my training got better. I was able to get a few more reps out. And it definitely probably helped my muscles get a little bit bigger, a little more glycogen being stored. At least that's what I'm assuming, because I know there's not a lot of studies on reverse dieting.
Right.
Right now, like that's one of the things that I know you and Lane are kind of pushing is we want to get more studies on this.
Trying, yes, but yeah, and the frustrating thing is that it's research happens. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. Yeah. So the best we can do is say, hey, based on these studies, this is our best guess at what happens. And here is, and right now, we're relying somewhat on research, but we're also relying a lot more on personal experience from ourselves and from our clients. We say, hey, we did this with this client, and this is what happened. Therefore, maybe we can do that again with this client. And, it's not ideal, but nothing's ever ideal. And so far, we've gotten some really good results out of people from that. So I think we're on the right track.
Yeah. I have to say, I know there are some people out there who aren't fans of it. There are people who are, and it worked for me, at least.
Right.
And I know that, it's been a benefit to myself. I still have my abs, which my wife doesn't really care about, and neither did anyone at the beach. But, that's a different story.
But you care.
But I care. They're still there. Because it was set like I should have done this last year, but I went on our honeymoon. I gained 17 pounds, and instead of coming back and being like, okay, I'll get back onto where I was, I just started eating at what Formula Online told me was my maintenance, and I definitely know my body fat skyrocketed. And I think you're right. I definitely feel that I've maintained a lower body fat and have been able to get a little more muscular. my strength has gone up, my energy is up, and yeah, it's been really good. I've enjoyed it. But I wanted to ask. So I had that weird piece of data for myself, with my bicep growing an inch.
Yes.
What's the oddest data point you've noticed in yourself or with clients that you're just kind of like, what?
That I can't really explain?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have, you mean with reverse dieting, right?
Yeah.
All right, so here's the funny thing that I'm still trying to figure out, and we have some guesses as to what might have been happening, but so, I competed in a bikini show last November, which was, what is that, 8 months ago? Wow, 8 months ago, it's been that long. Yeah. 8 months ago, and so leading up to the show, I went through a 20-week cut. And during that time, and it was a slow process, I lost 10 pounds. I'm 5'2". I started out at 116 at a 26-inch waist, and I ended at 106 with a 24-inch waist over a 20-week period. And during that time, I cut my calories from, I think, like 1,550 to 1,200, which is actually pretty normal for someone my size. I'm pretty small to begin with. So it was very, it was a reasonable prep. I didn't resort to, extremes by any means. But after the show, we dialed back on the, I think I was doing like 3 days of intervals per week at the time and 5 days of weight training. And over the next few months, we kind of dialed it back. We cut down the cardio until eventually I was doing no cardio. I was just doing just the weight training. And I was reverse dieting my calories back up. And over the next 2 months, I'd say I added, I was backed up to, I'd say around 1,600 calories a day. And I dropped weight to 105 for a little bit. And then I went back to 106, and then I was 107. But even as I continued to add calories, at one point, I remember back in February, I was eating up to 2,000 calories a day, and I was still maintaining 107 body weight, which, if you do the math, that's almost 20 times body weight, which should be, it's generally considered, bulking calories, quote unquote. Yeah. But I guess my metabolism had kind of skyrocketed for a little bit, and I had no idea what was going on, but I'm like, you know what? I kind of like eating, and this is fun. So I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna sit here and scratch my head. I'm just gonna, enjoy it. Cause I said, who knows how next month, who knows how my body's gonna respond, maybe. And I wasn't doing anything drastically different. I was still weight training. And at that point I had switched over to training for a powerlifting meet. So, my overall training volume had decreased a good bit. And I wasn't doing any steady state cardio, any kind of intervals either. And, but that was back in February. And then over the next few months, I found that, the calorie intake at which I needed to maintain my body weight actually kind of decreased over time. And that was something that, we don't know. I think there are so many factors at play here. We don't know exactly what could be contributing to that. But I'd say right now my maintenance intake now in July is it's a good bit lower than it was back in February. So that's something that I would like to learn more about. Why did that happen? I'm not any more or less active than I was back then. Maybe it's I understand that metabolism is by no means static. The body's always in a state of flux. But it was still very curious nevertheless. And no one that I've talked to, they're like, well, that's interesting, but we don't really know why that happens. We just know that the body is complex and sometimes it works in mysterious ways. That's
true. Because the only thing I would think is your volume decreased, and yeah, you're lifting heavier, but I don't know. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, it was odd because it's not like I was training any less hard or training more hard, because I always go hard every single training session that I have. And I can't think of anything that was drastically different. So I don't want to, hopefully it's not, oh, you're getting older, because I don't like to think I'm that old. I don't think age is at play here just yet. So I'm the good thing is I really like working with numbers. I like keeping track of data, and to me it's just interesting to see how my body responds to changes in caloric intake, and how differences of how I'm looking, in the mirror, physique wise, body fat, muscle composition and stuff. And but now I'm at 109, which is now it's 8 months later. I'm 3 pounds above stage weight, which I would say is pretty darn good.
That's hella awesome. And but you've also been, training as a powerlifter, which I wanted to ask about. And,
yes.
Usually that means that you're going to increase your calories a little bit, because you want that extra energy, from whatever you're doing, because you're typically going to be lifting a lot heavier.
Yes. To a degree, but we had decided early on. I was working with Brett Contreras, trained me up through my powerlifting meet, and we would talk, pretty frequently about my progress and keeping tabs on my body weight, because we had agreed pretty early on that we wanted me to compete in the 105-pound weight class, which is, for at the time, when I was maintaining at 107, 108, that's still 3 pounds lower than my everyday body weight. So we had to be careful not to let my weight get out of control, because otherwise, peak week would not be fun at all. And we didn't want to have to, we knew we'd have to drop some water weight, but we didn't want it to be anything crazy. So we said, okay, well, we're not going to set strict calorie limits, but let's keep an eye on your body weight and just make sure it doesn't get out of hand. And because in this case, in the case of powerlifting, I think this is one of those rare exceptions where I say this is the case where the scale number does matter only for making weigh-ins, right? That's the only purpose. But as far as assessing body comp changes and whatnot, it's meaningless unless you put it into proper context. But we were just trying to make weigh-ins. That's it. So, and he also said, we also want to make sure that you're getting stronger from week to week. But if your body weight is increasing at the same time, then yes, you are getting stronger, but your relative strength is not actually increasing because your body weight's going up too. So we want to keep my body weight stable, but have my training numbers going up more or less, not consistently, but steadily over time, which is exactly what we ended up doing. So we were really happy with how my numbers increased. I think it was a 20-week prep for that, also for the powerlifting prep, and I did end up making weights for the 105-pound weight class, and I was able to set 3 different PRs, which was a lot of fun. So I think that really came down to smart programming with this training. But we did nothing drastic as far as my diet. We didn't want to cut calories too much. We didn't want to overeat either. We were just eating just enough to maintain.
Which is, eating at maintenance, a lot of times you can still make amazing gains.
Yes.
Without going into a crazy bulk phase. So what do you enjoy about training as a powerlifter versus, say, like when you're going for bikini? You still do the compound lifts, but you're obviously not doing a bunch of like bicep curls, and you're not doing a bunch of shoulder presses or lateral raises. Right.
We had less isolation work. I will say that I very much enjoy both experiences. They're very, very different, and I found that you have very different mindsets with each approach. With the bikini, it's really fun. Obviously, you are going to be a little more focused on your physique and the day-to-day changes that you see in the mirror. You are going to place a little more emphasis on the scale weight and your measurements, and you do have to be more diligent with your dietary adherence. Yeah. Because you're based on looks. You're not being judged based on how much you weigh on the scale. You're judged based on how your muscles look and how, your body fat and your presentation and all those things. So it's all about show, and training in the gym was fun, but most of the magic and the fun happened outside of the gym, I feel like, with bikini, especially when it came time for progress pictures. And it was really fun for me to put pictures side by side and say, wow, I made progress. My waist looks a little bit more tapered now than 2 weeks ago, and my glutes are coming in a little bit. So that was the fun part. Whereas for powerlifting, you don't focus on that at all. You're not concerned with that. You're concerned about, damn, I lifted 10 more pounds on my deadlift than last week. That's amazing. And that, I think, especially for women, and I know it's great for men too, but I think women in general tend to struggle a little bit more with the body image, and the self-esteem and tying sense of self-worth to the number on the scale and how you're looking. And so to move away from that and, say, okay, your goal is to get, this number in the squat. And you don't care about how you look. It's not about your looks anymore. It's about your strength. That is incredibly empowering, and it was such a refreshing change of pace. And now that I've been through both experiences, I'm back to bikini prep for now. But I can very much appreciate the different mindsets involved with both. And I honestly think that if anyone, if you're even remotely interested in powerlifting, even just once, I think it's very much worth going through just to know what it's like to feel that way, know what it's like to say, well, my success is not based on my looks anymore, or that. And I think you grow. I don't know if growing up is the right term to use, but you mature a little bit in terms of, your emotional maturity with your self-image.
Yeah.
So that has been huge, and you don't have to be the strongest person in the world. I definitely am not going to be setting any world records in powerlifting, but I'm strong for myself, and that's fun for me.
Yeah, I've thought about that more myself, and I have goals that I want to do, when it comes to deadlifting or squatting, and then the whole like, well, I guess I kind of want to keep my abs, but is it really worth it? Like, is it really?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm glad to know that even people who do this every single day still kind of struggle with that aspect. I think a lot of people think that we're coaches or people in the fitness industry are sort of perfect and they don't really have these issues, but no, we still all have like these crazy
right. Well,
blocks.
And yeah, absolutely, that's a huge misconception. And I will say that the whole thing about this whole fitness journey is that there's never really a point when you can say, I've made it to my final destination and I'm done. You're always learning, you're always growing. There are always going to be ways to improve and become better as a person. And for some people, they might think, oh my God, then what's the point of even trying if you're never going to get to your destination? But I think that's the fun of it. That's why it's so great. You expand your horizons, and it's a continual effort. It's a lifelong journey. And I think when you learn to kind of switch your mindset from, okay, I have 12 weeks and then I'm done, to, okay, this is a 12-week stint, but after this is done, I have other goals I want to pursue and get better in other ways. I think that, you have a much healthier outlook on health and fitness in general.
I agree. I am a big, being the giant video game and uber nerd that I am, I like to say that life is like an RPG. You're always on a quest. There was a cartoon on Comedy Central called Drawn Together, and one of the characters always said he's on a never-ending quest to save his girlfriend.
Aww, that's kind of sweet.
It was kind of a wink towards like Link, how like he's always trying to save Princess Zelda. Like him and Mario are always like, really, really, again, I gotta come in and like save you. But I think that's kind of how life is, like you should always have something that you're working towards.
Right.
That is more than just Friday night.
Right. Absolutely. And again, if you I don't know if you noticed, but almost everything related to fitness always boils down to mindset, because right now we're talking about mindset.
Yep.
And that's why I love it. And my whole fascination with the behavioral psychology aspect of fitness came when I was in college. I know in the beginning of the podcast I realized I never answered how did I get into fitness. So let me go back to it now. I fell in love with weightlifting back in 2008. I've been lifting for 7.5 years now, and at the time I was 18. I just graduated from high school, and I went out and hired my first online coach, and it was a really good experience in many ways, and in other ways it hurt a lot because I was on a meal plan. I was prescribed over time a lot of cardio, and I was told what to do, but I wasn't told how to do it. And I didn't, obviously my adherence was perfect in the beginning because it was so easy. All you do is eat what's on the meal plan. That's it. There's no thinking involved. You just execute. But over time, as life got on the way, I was a freshman in college. It was my first semester, and I didn't know how to handle the social events and the drinking, and while still staying on top of my fitness. So I kind of said, I was like, well, I'm just not going to go to any of these social events because I don't want to deviate from my meal plan. And that really negatively affected my quality of life, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I had a lot of, I had a hard time making friends. I wasn't happy, but I didn't understand. I was like, I don't know how to strike that fine balance. And over the next few years, as I continued to struggle with these meal plans, I said, there has to be a better way. I said, I don't believe that you either have to be miserable and be in shape, or be out of shape but have a thriving social life. It didn't make sense, that dichotomy. I said, I don't think these are mutually exclusive. So I said, I don't know what the missing piece is, but I want to figure it out. And then I realized over time, I said, why is it that all these fitness people, they talk a lot about the nuances of training and the nuances of nutrition, but no one ever talks about the mindset aspect. No one ever talks about how to apply these things that we know to be, considered quote unquote optimal as deemed by science. How do we apply this consistently for long enough that we actually, get results, but are happy? And I said, is there a way to have both? so that's what I've been doing over the past 3 years. I've been doing a lot of reading and about habits and behavior change. And the more I read, the more fascinated I am. And I think that I'm especially interested because, one, I think that the behavioral aspect is one of the most overlooked aspects of the health and fitness industry.
Yep.
And people, and it's not only is it overlooked, it's widely misunderstood. So that's my main goal right now, is to go out there and help spread the truth about and bring light to the fact that, listen, it doesn't matter what's perfect. If you can't stick to it, you got to stick to what you can actually do.
Yeah.
Which, not everyone wants to hear that, but I'm trying.
Well, I will give you a quick book suggestion that I've been reading and have been all about, and it's very much in that mindset realm. It's called "You Are the Placebo" by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
You Are the Placebo. Okay.
It's sort of about mindset and a lot about how our minds can even affect our genetics. Like it goes into epigenetics a little bit.
I was gonna say, is that epigenetics cool?
Yeah, but it's actually it's influenced me with some of the writing that I've been working on. But I wanted to ask, and I had this down, so it's a great segue. What book has influenced you the most as a coach?
Oh my goodness, Okay, so I think as far as books that I think that is the most readable and entertaining, but also very insightful, I really like The Power of Habit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a book that a lot of people know about. Power of Habit. Motivational Interviewing is also a great book, but it's a little more dry, but it's a really great read for coaches who want to understand how to better help their clients. Because whether you realize it or not, even the way that you communicate with your clients can be very demotivating or motivating. That can affect their desire to work towards their goals. The Willpower Instinct by Kelly McGonigal is also really good. It corrects a lot of misconceptions about willpower in general. So I think that would be the best starting point.
Okay. All right. Yeah. The Power of Habit is actually in my Amazon cart right now. I just haven't hit.
You have to get it.
No, I literally so I just downloaded John Goodman's new audio book for trainers or whatever, and every single book he had listed in there, I ordered at that moment.
Yeah.
So I've got a whole stack of stuff I got to go through.
Yeah,
first.
He's got some great stuff.
Yeah, he does. So just a few more questions before we wind down the show. Let's get some fun ones in here. What is your favorite post-workout recipe that some days you're like, oh, that's it, I know what I'm going home to make? Oh,
in terms of food?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I'm not super creative when it comes to food and my nutrition. I keep things pretty simple, and I guess relative to other flexible dieters, I have a pretty boring diet. But I guess the most frisky that I get would be like an ice cream sandwich or something, or sugary cereal. Like we're really into Lucky Charms and Cinnamon Toast Crunch, all the kiddie stuff.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch is so good.
Mm-hmm. But I blend milk with whey protein powder, and I blend that up and use that as kind of like the milk base for a cereal, which it doesn't taste quite the same, but it's still really good.
Yeah.
Also just like making regular protein shakes with the thing I love about protein shakes is that they're so versatile. You can toss in chocolate whey, and then you throw in a banana, and you throw in some peanut butter, and it tastes amazing. And honestly, I feel like those taste better to me than regular milkshakes. Mm-hmm. So that's what I like to do. But unfortunately, I'm not the go-to person for fun foods. I like M&Ms and my Greek yogurt, and that's about it.
M&Ms and your Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. All right. What guilty pleasure track is on your workout mix that you would shamefully admit to others you listen to?
Oh my God. I just bought the Avril Lavigne album from her first album. I think it's called Let Go or something. I know. I bought that I think 3 years ago. I was in a very nostalgic mood that day, and I think I saw an article about her pop up in my newsfeed. I know she's been going through some health issues, Lyme disease, and I saw her face and I said, you know what? That first album of hers was really good. So I went through iTunes and I purchased her first album right away, and I was kind of rocking out in my car running errands around town, and I had no shame.
Hey, as you should not. She had some hits that were popular.
Yeah,
not
they were.
gonna lie.
I think her first album was the best album, and it's funny now to think back. I remember back then she was like, "I'm not a pop star, I'm a rocker," and then later on she's like, "Yeah, I do pop music." And I'm like, "Yeah, you totally do."
It's interesting that you say that because I remember having a conversation in high school where we were like, she's not really punk. Like, there's no punk.
Right. I'm like, you're pop. Just admit it. Like, you try to be punk, but you're really pretty, and you've got a nice voice, and the genre is definitely pop.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. All right. If you could be any superhero, what superhero would you be?
Oh my goodness. I want to say Spiderman, I guess, because. But this is just completely off the top of my head. Spiderman, because I hate traffic. So if I can find a way to not sit in the car and not waste my time and just get to places really fast and kind of be the good guy saving heroes and stuff, that would be cool for me. But I've also thought about before, I'm like, man, I'd kind of be nice to read people's minds. Although now I'm thinking maybe it's better not to know what people are thinking about me. Like, do I really want to know?
I feel like it would be like that scene from Bruce Almighty where you get like all the emails from like everyone.
Yeah.
Like that's just, it would be like I can't understand.
Right.
Yeah, it would drive me nuts.
Okay, so this isn't actually a superhero, but as far as superpowers, I've always thought this. I remember, I don't know what movie it was, but a number of years back, I saw this movie where this kid could, he was some anomaly, and he was a speed reader, and he could learn things. Just he could just open a textbook and flip through the pages in about 10 seconds and absorb everything in that textbook.
Huh.
And I was like, how nice would that be? I could learn about anything in the world and retain that information in a matter of seconds instead of spending weeks studying for my ISSN certification. And then, you know what I mean? And so that is something that I very much would like.
I'm with you on that. I think I could be like, you know what? I could read all of Wikipedia in a day, and I could know everything.
Right.
Because it's very easy when you're doing research, and this happens to me. I'm working on articles. I'm like, why am I going down this rabbit hole? What?
Right. Yeah. Especially if it's something that you're super interested in.
Yeah. True. All right, so a couple more questions. This one is just a little investigative research for me because I'll be moving to Georgia soon.
Okay.
My wife has demanded for fall break that we come to Savannah. So what's the best place to eat in Savannah?
All right, so if you want to go to a nicer place, there are 3 places that I really like. There's one that's Noble Fare is my favorite restaurant. It is downtown. Try to ask for John the waiter. He's very good. Ask for John. The other place that a lot of people will tell you that you should go to, and I think it's a classic, very Savannah, is called the Pink House.
Okay.
And it's literally a pink house. But I think it really gives you a taste of the South. The Pink House is really good, and the last one, which I think would be I would recommend the first 2, but the third one is a place called, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but it's Allure. It's A.Lure. Allure. And their bread, if you can fit it into your macros, their bread is so good. You have to try their bread.
That means we have to go there because my wife loves bread.
Those are the nicer places. Oh, and then if you go to Noble Fare, you want to get their grilled Caesar salad.
Grilled Caesar salad?
Yeah. They take their romaine lettuce and literally grill it. Like, ooh, it's so good.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, we don't go out to eat very often, but when we do, like my husband Evan already knows that when I want to celebrate or anything, our anniversary, we go to Noble Fare and ask for John. That's very important. He's the best.
I will keep that in mind for when we get down that way. All right, so just a couple more. So we've spoken a lot about mindset.
Yes.
In this, and sort of how you kind of got over how you kind of built yourself up to move beyond where you were, years ago. So what was one of the biggest roadblocks or stumbling blocks for you in your process that you have been able to control and overcome?
For me, it was, and I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with too, is getting in my own way. I think it's very easy to convince yourself that, oh, what I'm doing isn't working. You got to jump ship. You got to go harder. So the hardest thing to do is to resist the temptation to crank things up a notch in terms of, going to extremes. You want to be patient, and you want to learn to take things slow and then really enjoy the process. Don't be in such a hurry to get to the finish line that you end up kind of hurting yourself in the long term. There's that one meme. Dang it, I don't have it right now, but it's got an image of a guy on his bike. He's running a bike.
Yeah. And
then he takes a stick and he reaches down and he sticks the stick into his own wheel and trips himself over. That's self-sabotage. You're doing that to yourself. But I think it's a great metaphor for what we do to ourselves, because we think that we're on the right track, and I see this happen all the time. You're making good progress. You let's say 2 weeks in, you lost an inch off your waist, you lost 2 pounds off the scale. But instead of saying, wow, I'm on the right track, I better keep this up and keep doing what I'm doing, you're thinking, this isn't fast enough. And I'm like, no. All you have to do is just keep putting in the work, the same amount of work week in and week out, and you will make some pretty lasting changes. But no, people don't want to wait. People don't have patience. So just trust the process, fight the urge to take things to the extreme, and move away from the negative self-talk. I think that's important too, because when you tell yourself that you can't do something, guess what? You're not going to be able to do it. And the mind is incredibly, incredibly powerful. Our over time, our behaviors tend to move more in line with our beliefs. And the more we tell ourselves certain things, the more we believe them. And it sounds very frou-frou. I know it sounds kind of crunchy and kind of hipster to be like, believe in yourself and say good things to but it's so, it's the power of the language that you use with yourself is so underrated, I guess. Underrated. And the hardest part for me is when, clients are being super negative in their check-ins to me. And, because that all comes down to a mindset. It's a perspective issue. It's, they're focused so much on the end goal that they can't learn to enjoy the actual journey. So, and I like to remind people, guess what? I know that maybe you have a strict timeline for now. Maybe you have a show coming up in 10 weeks or 12 weeks, but that's not going to be the end of it. You still have more. You're still going to be alive after the 12 weeks. You still have to deal with, You have to eat food somehow. You're going to want to exercise somehow. So you got to figure out, okay, beyond just that, how am I going to make this work for me? And, really change your mindset to, wow, this is really exciting. Like, instead of saying, oh my God, I have to do this for the rest of my life, think, I get to do this for the rest of my life. And this is so much fun. And I get to constantly strive to improve and get better. And I think that's when you face a lot less resistance with yourself. Because I think it's hard enough as it is with, trying to navigate life and juggle your fitness with life and having naysayers and other people and other external circumstances. But so you don't want to have an internal battle on top of that. That's hard enough as it is. So you want to be on this. You want to be on your own team,
right?
If that makes sense. You're on your own side. Don't make it harder for yourself.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I see it with my clients, and I see it with friends, and I see it with with people in my own family, where we are literally the barrier. Like, we are the wall.
Right. Get out of your own way. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, we know what we have to do, what we should do, but I think it's even harder nowadays because we can instantly get anything we want.
And we're used to that.
Yeah. And we just think that we can instantly get this weight loss, and we can instantly get that. Just, life is so long and enjoyable. Like, that's, the more I think about it, the more I learn, the more I even think about this with my marriage. Like, we have a whole life together. Like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of crazy things that happen, and life could be long, it could be short. I don't know, but I don't want to go for the instant. I want to go for, let's just get better day in and day out.
Yes.
But that may also be because I grew up playing sports, and that influences as well. All right, so last question, and I stole this one from Tim Ferriss. I thought it was a great question to ask it, and I totally ask it with all my guests because I love it. If you could have dinner with one person from history, who would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. I think I do remember him asking that.
Yeah.
Okay. How do I do this? Okay, I'm not really much of a history person. One person from history. Can it be any history?
Any history.
Well, okay. I will say I'm not a feminist, but I think I love when I see female entrepreneurs kicking ass in whatever industry that they're in. So I'm a huge supporter of any women, independent women who can, pave their own path. Who would be a person that who would? I like Audrey Hepburn.
All right.
I don't know much about her, but I watched Breakfast at Tiffany's a few weeks ago, so she's the first person that came to mind. I think she's one of a handful of women from her time who really helped. I mean, I know she was heavily involved in activism, and besides being, beautiful and being in movie roles and whatnot. But I have so much respect for any women who can. I think it's an uphill battle for us. Honestly, I think it really is a lot harder for us. For her to go out there and pursue her passions and put herself out there and make herself vulnerable to the world, I have the utmost respect for that.
Yeah. I would love to have dinner with Audrey Hepburn. I would just sit there and be like, just smile.
You're just gorgeous.
She still has the most, even 50 years from now, I will still say I think she has the most beautiful smile that any.
She's stunning.
I mean, just that smile at Breakfast at Tiffany's, and I'm just like, melt. I'm done.
Yeah. I love that. I especially love that, she stayed classy the whole time. She maintained her integrity throughout her career.
Yeah, she was an interesting person in Hollywood, and when a lot of things went in certain ways, she kind of stayed, where she was. She didn't follow the crowd and the hot things of the time. Well, Sohee, I've had a great time on the show. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find you online?
Yes. Website is Sohee Fit. My Facebook page, Sohee Fit. Instagram, Twitter, it's all Sohee Fit. Everything that I have is Sohee Fit. If you want to get in touch with me, I've got a contact form on my site, and we can get back to you on that. But that's it. Sohee Lee, Sohee Fit.
Awesome. Well, guys, and I will put up links in the show notes as well on the website for the ebook, so you guys can head over and click on that and learn a little bit about reverse dieting as well, because I do have to say I think my experiment went very well. Now I'm going to crank up the carbs. I'm going to see how high I can go before
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun to experiment.
Yeah, which my wife gets really she's like, stop experimenting. I'm like, I can't help it. I grew up watching Bill Nye.
I'm so curious.
I know. See, and I was going to say this earlier. That's what we need in the fitness industry. We need a Bill Nye. We need a Bill Nye who comes in and just lays out the science and makes it cool, and you want to watch it or listen to it, and not have the white and the black, and he stays in the gray.
Making moderation sexy is what I say.
Making moderation sexy. I'll make that the title of the podcast.
I gotta go trademark that very quick.
Well, Sohee, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. It's been a lot of fun.